other stuff and he's thinking that's all that matters, and it's like,
No, it's the same one.
it's like, you need to be.
Oh, this one is smart.
And police department.
Yeah.
Good evening. We are here for our second workshop tonight. Is solely devoted to capital improvement projects. And Larry, I'm calling Larry, is going to be on the phone. Larry is in the midst of his busiest season in his job, and he's on a boat trying to find ice. And you can't buy ice a week early because it'll melt. So he asked, could we call him? So I'm going to put him on speaker so he's here. So wouldn't he be considered here since our ordinance allows it? Great. Okay. So it's all yours, Chris. Good evening.
Good evening. All right. As you mentioned, we were talking about CIP.
I'm putting you on speaker. We just started the meeting and you were present.
Okay. So just to recap, CIP is about $11.6 million proposed, and it's about 29% of the overall consolidated budget. Again, here, this is the resources used for CIP construction is restricted, committed, and assigned expenditures for capital outlays. To be considered a CIP project, there is a $5,000 per unit or unit cost threshold. Except for roads, buildings, and software, which the threshold is $50,000 to be included in the CIP. This is the overall process right now. Obviously, all these guiding documents are looked at and reviewed, and projects are proposed based on relationship to these. Staff reviews the current available resources. Town considers the prioritization of projects. Planning Commission reviews and recommends to Council. Council approves the prioritization included in the budget. And tonight is when we're reviewing each of the individual proposed projects. Also, as part of the CIP submissions, we require departments to or engineering to include estimates on the impact to operations and maintenance of the general fund. So this is what the estimated impact annually to the general fund, and that's each year the additional amount that would be added based on projects that are expected to be completed. So that is incorporated into future estimates of budget needs. Here's the overall summary of CIP. The license and permits are the MDIF fee, which is a $900 permit fee. The grants included in here are a potential $500,000 for the new Riverside Park. That's a federal grant, and a potential $100,000 for the new Riverside Trail. The intergovernmental amounts are your proviso dollars. There's some in there for sewer, Bridge Street, Streetscape, and Goethe Schultz. The other revenue sources are outlined there, transfer from hospitality tax, local accommodations tax, stormwater fund. Again, that's just the carry forward of some stormwater dollars from prior year projects. TIF is our biggest funder of CIP, estimated for 22 of $2.2 million. And then there's a general fund transfer, which we talked about last year. There's $500,000 for land acquisition, potential $500,000 of proceeds from the land sale at Buckwater. If that goes through, that would be transferred over, and then $280,000 from the equipment reserve for IT infrastructure projects. And then, of course, the use of CIP fund balance, again, that's just CIP fund accumulates resources from all those various transfers in over time, and it gets spent down as projects are completed. So that's what that reflects. Breakdown by expenditure category, we have $2.8 million in stormwater projects, and that is almost all from the bond funds, bond proceeds. 2.6 in economic development projects, parks of 2.1, roads of 1.5. Then I'll go over the rest of the projects as we go to individual project summaries. I'm not going to go over this sheet individually, but when you get the copy of this, it'll be in your packet so you can reference. Again, I'll go over each individual one of these projects in detail. Here's the funding breakdown and projected estimate out into the future. So of these projects, $7 million has been spent to date on these projects. The estimate for the year end of this fiscal year is 4.3, and proposed budget for next year is 11.6. I'm going to switch over, if I can figure out how to get there. Okay. Watershed management facility improvements. Just 8,500 budgeted, and this is for software repairs and interior painting and floor replacement. And as I go through each of these, if you have questions or want more detail on any of these projects, feel free to stop me. We have Brian in here as well. He can offer more detail if I can answer your question. Sewer connections. This is the sanitary extensions and connections to unserved areas within the 500-foot buffer of May River Cove. May River, I think there's two different coves. Stormwater projects Brian has reviewed several times. We have the historic district, sewer extensions. Phase 2 here includes the end of Bridge Street along Verdier Cove. There's 12 parcels, and it's $299,716. Phase 3 is Colcock Street, and that's 7 parcels included, as budgeted at $170,665.
Were any of those 319 grants or anything like that, or sewer in the Old Town Historic District?
I don't believe any of these have that grant associated with it.
Okay.
Connections only. The phase 4 is Lawrence Street, and there's five parcels included there. $112,500. Phase 5 is Green Street. That includes 5 parcels for $138,095.
I have a question. Maybe
Yep.
it might go to another section, but since some of these are on ghost roads, are we doing it all combined? We're getting the easements, owning the road, and doing the sewer, if that falls on a ghost road? Had to get you up here.
Pretty much every one of these has some form of ghost road impact.
Okay.
And so we have to get the ghost road acquisition before we can begin the project.
Okay, we're
So-
doing it all in tandem.
Yes, they're going together.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
Phase 6 is for FY22 is just the design costs. It's only $2,450.
What is that one again?
This is, if you look at these,
Oh, phase 6, okay,
Hugger
sorry.
Cove and Hayward Cove. Properties there and over here. Bridge Street Streetscape, including sidewalks, on-street parking, street lighting, crosswalks, and ADA compliance.
That, never mind, I'm good.
That's 1.3 million. Comprehensive drainage plan, this is comprehensive assessment of storm drain features in historic district, drain lines, inlets, manholes, ditches and channels, and to identify any needed improvements, any remaining needed improvements. Budget at 153,000.
So let me ask, some of the places that were identified in the area that is in the boundaries of that right there, that 2026, for example, the area next to Pearls, is that coming up anytime soon, or will that be done with the Streetscape project, or how will that go?
I would assume so, but I'll defer to.
This project is kind of a catch-all of looking at all those areas, and it's specifically for the historic district, the areas that don't have any infrastructure. And like Boundary Street, for example, there's only one inlet on the entire street. So this is looking at the entirety of the historic district, modeling the flooding and figuring out where we need to put drainage infrastructure that will correspond with the other streetscape projects. So we're looking at the streetscape projects and this all together. Yeah, holistically, correct.
So an example would be, for me, like I've mentioned to Mark in the past, when we did the May River streetscape, and we ended up at Promenade. So I'm trying to get my head around what this is. So there's standing water there all the time on that charter one side. Is that something this project would look at? Okay.
So we have a map showing all, and I'm gonna call them a heat map, but basically showing all the locations of nuisance ponding, and that's the one that shows up every single time.
Okay. So, okay, good. Thank you.
So Buck Island Road, this includes new culverts, channel improvements, and erosion control. There.
Picture of that. It's what it looks like all the time.
That's budgeted at 229,800 for this year and 179 for next fiscal year.
Brian and Pat are busy.
Yes,
Might never see them again after tonight.
much so. So Stony Crest Campground, again, this is just some preliminary planning dollars. Again, it's dependent upon cooperation with Beaufort Jasper as well as the county. As many of you know, Beaufort County has indicated that they are looking into using some of their ARPA dollars for this project. And Beaufort Jasper's already has this on their plan, I believe, right? Beaufort Jasper's at the table. Okay.
Can I stop and just make sure, Larry, do you have questions right now? Are you hearing us?
Yeah, can you hear me, Lisa?
Can y'all hear Larry? Yes.
Okay. All I want to say at this point is thank you to Brian and Chris for making all this come to a head, something that we've been working on for a really, really long time. And I totally support their efforts, and I appreciate the efforts of everyone. This is something, a ball we've been kicking down the road for a while, and I really appreciate them bringing it to fruition.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Keep going.
Calhoun Streetscape. Again, this is road resurfacing, widening of the sidewalk, crosswalk, stormwater, street lighting, signage, and utility relocations. This is engineering and design and easement acquisition for FY22. Historic District, streetscape and drainage improvements. This is just drainage improvement sidewalks and crosswalks planned for FY22. Is there locations on here? All throughout, yeah, that's what I thought.
So on those crosswalks, what exactly are we going to be looking at doing?
Making them ADA compliant, I believe, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Nothing different as far as from a safety aspect of crossing, anything different we would do to notify traffic or?
Okay, Buckeye and Simmonsville, neighborhood sidewalks and lighting. So again, this is sidewalks and lighting in conjunction with the sewer improvements, and expected to be conclude in FY22. Filthy Schultz improvements, and this is sidewalks and lighting as well, and expected to complete in FY22. We budgeted about $500,000 in FY22. Does include a CDBG.
Go back for a second.
Yep.
I think, Buckeye and Simmonsville, it looked like past Windy Lakes. Is that north of the Parkway?
I was about to say,
Oh,
what-
the last one?
I'm on the
Okay.
wrong screen.
Right here.
Parkway. Oh.
Lakes, isn't that on Buck Island Road?
No, Windy Lake spread is the old sugary.
Hidden Lakes is on Buckeye.
Sure. We have Wharf Street lighting in here. This is the planning phase. The implementation isn't expected to be completed until the end of FY '24. Ghost roads, which we've discussed, this is ongoing Ghost Road acquisition.
Saying that in 2022, the hope is that we'll have all our ghost roads under, is that what that's saying? Because there's no numbers after 2022?
That's just the legal fees that we have right now. We have, out of 174 lots that we need, we have 33 signed off and recorded. We have 5 additional that the deeds are in the owner's hands. Slow. Like I told you, it's
Can
a
you
slow
utilize,
process.
I mean, that's probably not something they really want us to take, so I think at some point we're going to have to take that next step, right? Because they don't want us to have it, because right now they're using it. Or some of them, I would think if you're a ghost road, they'd rather keep it the way it is than, as opposed to an easement for sewer, I'm saying. So I guess we'd look to you, when is that next step? When do we?
We've discussed it. Condemnation.
I would still like to offer my services on Lawton Street.
We are working on the easement
Okay.
documents to get your help for that.
Our Boundary Street streetscape. Again, sidewalks, crosswalks, utility relocations, and this goes from May River Road to Bridge Street. Fire Pope. This is the stabilization and then the putting out to bid and permitting stage for FY '22. Budget at $52,850, so this is the first step. LEC improvements. This is HVAC, carpet painting, and parking area. So this is completed. This is started in the current fiscal year, and this will go into next fiscal year and hopefully be completed. Public Works facility improvements includes a fence, yard servicing, HVAC, and flooring. $66,900. Next, we have the Rotary Community Center, includes flooring, the door access system installation, and some service yard repairs for $33,500. Have included the additional signage for the Garvey House. I believe this is the last phase of signage. We have our land acquisition budget, and again, this is, $500,000 every year put into this project.
See, you've hired Mark Orlando as the project manager.
Oh, is he still on there?
No, we changed it.
Oh,
You have a whole copy.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
I caught that when I was editing, and I took that out, so yes. It just says town manager. I didn't even give myself credit for that one, so. Yeah, so this is a cumulative amount of $998,386. We got the affordable housing project, and currently budgeted there is all we have available there, and that's $880,000. That agreement is still with Terry and the lawyers to discuss. So if we expect that amount will be sufficient for the first phase, at least for FY22, if it moves forward. Buckwalter Phase 2, this is the infrastructure supporting the town-owned pads there. That's at $2.6 million. Oyster Factory Park, expecting to start construction as FY22.
Stop for a second.
Yep.
I can't remember, on the multi-industrial part, where we got the pad and everything. So I guess based on that, council did decide to move forward and do some work there.
So I think the idea right now is to do the infrastructure to the pads, but not do the concrete to the pad right now. So we're prepping the site for any potential companies to come in, but obviously we wouldn't pour the pad until we knew what company it was and what their layout would be. Is that correct? That's correct. Yeah. So yeah, Oyster Factory Park beginning in FY22 with some initial expenditures of $292,575, the bulk of it occurring in the following fiscal year. Oscar Frazier Park includes some turf, landscaping, irrigation, painting, train staining, and some sod, $76,350. That carries over into the following fiscal year as well. River Road Pocket Park. The current estimate includes sidewalks, lighting, seating areas, signage, and landscaping. It's budgeted in there at $141,330. I know there's been discussions to kind of go back and revisit the design to see if we can get any savings there, but right now we have the current cost estimate of $141,330 in there. Let
me ask another question on Oscar Frazier Park. Mm-hmm. The town manager had always been pushing for tennis courts there. I didn't know whether council still wanted to go down that road at some point, or maybe look at another utilization over there. Rethinking, I don't know.
I don't know if it was Mark as much, it was Bluffton Park HOA. They always were expecting tennis courts, and we always had it on some old master plan, but now that's turned over. I mean, that's been on there for years, and it might be something worth looking at. Still shows on the map,
okay.
But right. If there's a way to move it and find more parking for them, there's so much land on that other side, and I don't know if PALS would ever want to relook at this and what they could, because they wanted parking. I always thought that little stub between that right pie piece and where the townhomes are would be, if it's uplands, would be great parking for them. Because the tennis courts were to go where our stormwater, where our public works department was. We thought there was still more land to the right side of that, right, Brian? Like to that. Oh, it's in, oh, okay, I see it, go down, right? It's on there, isn't it? It's right there, which probably is not going to be the place for them with all the work the Rotary Club's doing. And build those tennis courts? We don't know. It's just there. Okay.
Any other questions on that one?
Well, I mean, maybe going back to Dan, so that's not an area that's where they were placed. Were you thinking outside that green area to the east? that
Well, I've
could
heard
be
discussions,
used?
I thought of the tennis courts being in a couple places some years ago, but my main question was, tennis courts there, or do we want to try to envision and put something else? That was my main question.
And we're not on the hook to pay for those tennis courts, so it was just placed there for, I don't know, just to know they wanted them, but I've not heard an outcry from that community about tennis courts. Maybe one time, long time ago, so.
It might be, again, the question is, maybe we just have further discussion on it down the road. You maybe could have basketball or something
Right.
there, you know?
Right.
What would give us the most utilization, bang for the buck, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make.
Splash pad, that's something Bridget's talked about.
Yep.
It's a great place with all the kids, and that's a well-used park. It could be a Rotary project and a partnership. And I think that's the place for a splash pad.
Right. Well, that was on their strategic plan as one of the phase of what they envision for the Field of Dreams.
Larry, did you want to chime in? I hear you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I don't know how you hear me because I didn't say anything,
Well,
but
we
thank
heard
you
you.
for the thank you for the opportunity. First of all, Mayor, I guess I want to. Can I recuse myself and still make a comment?
Well, you're not voting on anything, so there's nothing to
Okay.
recuse.
Okay, so I can ask the questions that I want to ask. Thank you, and that's the way I thought it was. My question is to Brian and Chris. You know, in 2019, before we started doing the Calhoun Street dock and the Wright Family Park, there was an agreement between the town and Beaufort County to utilize some of the docking, you know, such as the floating dock and stuff at the Bluffton Oyster Company. I don't know where that's gone. I know the permit has been applied for, and the last thing I heard a week or two ago was that there was no public comment in opposition of it. So I'm just, you know, I was told 2 years ago that was in our CIP project, and I'm just asking the question so that I know, is that money to relocate those floating docks to the Bluffton Oyster Company still on the table?
I think they're trying to figure out what you're asking, and Brian's about to walk up to explain. Maybe. Or maybe he's not, because Pat seems to know. They're discussing it, Larry. Hold tight.
Okay.
So the material that we took from the old Calhoun dock, we've received permission from the county to reuse that at the Oyster Factory. It's already been moved down there, but we haven't constructed it, and we're not going to spend town dollars to construct that. We've applied for the permit. It went through the 30-day public notice comment period. No comments were received, so I expect the permit within a matter of weeks, and then he can move forward with using that material.
What are we going to do with it? I remember it vaguely, but what's the plan? What are we going to do with that, or what were our plans?
Dock, right? Using the old material.
Are we talking about Oyster Factory? Okay. On the Oyster Factory building side. Okay. Behind the actual building. Okay.
Right. So it was kind of breaking in and out on me a little bit, Mayor. If I could get a clear explanation of what was just said.
Okay, Brian said that he expects a permit shortly. And you said, and I'll repeat
Material
it.
can be reused to construct the dock at the Oyster Factory.
To be used to reconstruct the dock behind the building at the Oyster Factory. And he should be getting that permit soon, but he did ask about, was there public comment? And
No public comment.
there was no public comment on it.
Correct. So what I'm asking, is that in the budget to do that?
Is that in the budget to do that? They're shaking their head.
No.
No.
Okay.
Would that
So
not
I
fall
was
under county?
informed before that it was in the budget from last year before the pandemic, or, about the, whatever, I guess it was last year's budget. So, I guess what I'm asking is, so we get a permit, we don't have funding, is the floating docks and the stuff that was brought down from the Calhoun Street dock going to sit there and, for another physical year? Or is it up to someone else to spend the money to put it in place, even though it's owned by the town in Beaufort County?
Gotcha. And I'll answer whatever Brian says, I'll put it in your ear. And he's about to answer.
Okay.
I think we may need to discuss this with Terry. I would be remiss to spend public dollars to repair money there for that dock, similar to what we faced with the roof.
Okay, time out. He needs to talk to Terry because he's a little nervous about spending money on the dock similar to how we replaced the roof.
Right, where we thought we were doing it correctly, and then we thought we were going correctly, and then PRT pulled the grant funding from us at the end. I don't want to go through that process.
He's nervous about the PARD funding and the grant funding at the end being pulled. So Brian and Chris need to talk to Terry about steps that we do it correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, and if that's where we are, I'm fine with that, Mayor. I am just waiting for some kind of direction on what is going on, because we have been waiting for a couple of years. Whichever way it comes out, I can deal with, but I need to get some kind of answer on what we are going to do. The permit, I heard last week or the week before that there were no objections to it. I was told by Mark Orlando that the funding was there and in the budget to improve a property owned by the town and Beaufort County jointly. And I'm just trying to figure out, because what's there is falling apart. And if it's on me totally, I'll figure it out. But I don't want to do something that is, interferes with a process that's already in the making.
Good. So maybe to summarize, can we figure out what the funding source was, if there was a funding source a year or two ago? Was it a grant? What was it? Will y'all get with Terry? And then just let us know at some point where that is. Is
Absolutely.
We could answer that by final.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine with me, Mayor. I feel like our A-tax, our accommodation tax, warrants that, with the type of business that it is and the amount of tourism that we draw there. Whether the town and Beaufort County can figure that out amongst themselves, I'm sure, and I was told from some parties from both sides, the town and Beaufort County, that it did qualify for some of those funds to be used.
Well,
We'll look into that.
they're looking into it. They're shaking their heads yes. So they'll get back with all of us. Okay.
Okay.
We're on May
Thank
River. No problem. We're on May River Road Pocket Park, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So yes, this, the current estimate is 141,330, and you can see the design right there as it stands today: sidewalks, lighting, seating areas, signage, and landscaping.
I would like us to scrub that as best we can. I walk there every day. I just don't see what else we can do. I don't see what else we can do for a little side park when there's benches on the sidewalk already. So the best we can do that to make that pretty, but I don't know why that number is that high.
Well, that number, where did the number originally come from?
It was an estimate from engineering.
An estimate based on.
Based on the concept plan that was provided to us? Okay, we created. And I know Mr. Marks had something at some point.
That we had to do. We have to use that plan. Good. Good for you. Oh, good. Good. Okay.
Our new Riverside Barn Park, this is the beginning of the construction of infrastructure to the park. Currently proposed at 1.3,081,095, and this includes a potential grant. General park improvements. These are just improvements that are outside of the normal maintenance and repairs of the parks around town.
Are you thinking that on looking at all the parks, or I know that's just of the Shrimp Boat Park, Dubois Park, but.
Yeah, I'm not sure which parks are on the schedule for next year, if it's all the
Oh,
parks
here
or-
they are, right here,
All
Dubois,
those
Pritchard,
Dubois,
Oscar,
Pritchard,
Frazier, right. Okay.
And New River Trail, this is the master planning and preliminary site planning phase. Budget at $187,500. All right, we'll go into some of the IT projects. So we have the ongoing safety camera replacement plan. So this is budget typically around $58,500, right around $60,000 annually.
A question on that, Chris, I was going to ask it the other day when you were talking about the lighting.
Yep.
I would think the new lighting that we're talking about changing over is going to really aid in cameras getting a sharper image. That's good, because I felt like that was a good plus for changing that out, and I see Brian shaking his head, or Tommy.
Well, the cameras that the original cameras that we're replacing out, end of life cycle, have better night vision capability. So so it has like an infrared ring to where it creates a white light for it to see into the night, and then the added LED lighting will help too.
We have a document management system. This is the first phase. This is a significant software enhancement that includes the searchability of town documents, assists with FOI requests, and it also helps us come in compliance with state mandated record retention laws. It's a 3-year project, and this would be phase 1 at $100,000. We got finally our network infrastructure improvements. This includes core switch replacements, replacement of VMware hosts, and recabling of the watershed and substation buildings. This is the first phase at $180,000. That concludes the list of projects. Do you have any other questions on any of the ones that we reviewed today?
Anybody have any other questions? They kind of stopped you as you went along, which I thought was good.
Just curious about one thing. Today's world, and I know you make every effort and you do a good job of training all of us to not make mistakes to put us in compromises. But we were compromised. I mean, would you cut over to all new servers or something? How would you go about something like that?
So with our backups, we do two different backups. One is just our data, documents, files, all that. We back up and then we replicate to the cloud. So we have two separate backup areas, one locally, one in the cloud. And then for our servers themselves, we do what's called a bare metal backup. So what that is a backup of all the settings, the software, everything is replicated. So we use VMware, which is basically virtual servers. So you have multiple hosts that run multiple servers at one time. So if Munis or Intergov or something like that were compromised, what we would do is rebuild those servers through the bare metal backups, and then we would pull that data back down from the cloud as a clean install. And you see it in the papers all the time. There's counties, municipalities, states, all kinds
Hospitals, churches, it doesn't matter.
Gas pipelines. They're all compromised, and that was why we introduced that cyber training policy you guys approved in January. That gives us quarterly training for all staff. Anyone that has a town email address receives that quarterly training. We also do random fish testing, and that kind of gives us a baseline to help with, help staff become more aware and pay attention, because we receive thousands of emails a day, and 40% of them are legitimate phishing emails.
So if I understand correctly, basically everything would be in the cloud. It's supported in backup material there in the cloud. And if you had to bring it back there, you have to bring it back to a local server, don't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, but that, when you're replicating, like I said, you back up locally and then you replicate to the cloud. So if your internal network is compromised, that cloud is where you pull everything. And then this, like I said, we restore with the bare metal backup to get the server back up, and then we pull the uncompromised data back down and back up. It's not a, snap your fingers process, but that's the short of it.
But you're not held for ransom. You're not held.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. And I mean, that's the importance of accurate and working backups. Yeah, because what they're doing is basically encrypting that file. And unless you have that encryption password, you can't unencrypt it. But if you have a backup of that file, you can just say thanks and go away, and you do what you need to do.
Thank you for a new workshop.
We could spend a lot of time with IT fund.
I've been thanked that I passed my phishing test. I was tested and I forwarded it, and I think somebody said you passed, and so be careful, guys.
You're getting tested.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Tommy.
Any other questions?
Any other questions of anybody? Great. Even questions we ask, I know it's in here. I love the project performance measures, and I think a lot of those answers were in this list. And then this, I would say, is exactly what you see if you go online to our CIP map. So if you go into our CIP map and click a project, you see exactly what we have in our books and kind of the timing.
We'll do a word search for Orlando.
Larry, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I don't really have a question at this point, Mayor. I'd just like to say thank you to Tommy, because growing up, born in the 50s and trying to do everything that's right, that we have to do right these days, he has been amazing as far as coaching me and telling me what to do and what I shouldn't do, and I probably still mess it up. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Tommy and IT for, doing what they do.
Thank you, sir.
He says thank you. So any other questions? Kim, I didn't do public comment.
We don't have any.
Public comment is closed. There's no public comment. Just two things. This is very important. Thursday, if anyone's looking, this is the historic symposium that was taking place. It's all over our social media. Tomorrow is the opening of Low Country Fresh Produce. I did a little walkthrough today. It's super cool. I want to tell you the requirement for those rentals. There were 2 employees that they would not have been able to take the job had they not had affordable rental. And they were able to get a unit at 170 Crown. And they were beyond ecstatic. And it got them a job here. And they are amazing culinary women. It's just amazing. So I hope we all get to go by there. We can shop tomorrow. There's a fish like 8 feet long in their fish ice bucket, and then there are all the little fishes underneath. So it's pretty cool. Anything else? There's a motion.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you all.